I wanted to mention this resource that I've brought up for many people who have heard me speak before. It's held the test of time. So it's the agreed upon key principles for providing best practices in early intervention across all disciplines. And one of those 7 key principles says specifically that infants and toddlers learn best through everyday experiences and interactions with familiar people in familiar contexts. Now, notice the word meaningful there in italics, and I didn't read it aloud because meaningful, this is very interesting to me. I've read this principle over and over, and I was recently looking up the do's and don'ts related to this key principle, and I came across a resource from Massachusetts. And in their resource, they added this word meaningful to the key principle. And I thought, I recognize that it wasn't there because I've read this and, cited this so many times. And I said, that's so interesting that they added a word to the key principle, but I think it's so important and relevant, especially to our conversation today. It's relevant because everybody assigns different meaning to different things, right? So every family, every person, different cultures, we all assign different meanings to words, to routines, to traditions, to habits, right? So I think this is just an interesting word that they chose to add here and so relevant because our work, we have this great knowledge base about early intervention best practices, development, strategies, but it always comes back to what is meaningful. What are the everyday moments that are meaningful to each individual family? I also wanted to just share this word chart because these are all words that I hear frequently referenced when people talk about best practices in early intervention. Strengths-based, relationship-based, child-led, triadic, collaborative, capacity building, routines-based, and many more. And so the idea is that when we're applying best practices and when we're being culturally responsive in early intervention, it isn't about the fact that we need to get a whole different set of strategies or rules or principles to do this work. It is that we want to make sure that we're considering these best practice concepts and applying them with all families, right? So that being said, I have a little introductory reflection question for everyone. As we're getting started, I'd like you to just take a minute to self-reflect and think about the early intervention home visits or virtual visits that you've had this week. I want you to think of a specific instance or instances, very specific, picture the details, where your work really aligned with one of these best practice concepts. I just want us to always be in that practice of doing our own self-reflection so we can identify our own strengths that we're going to build from over the course of this next year. And that's also because it's the same starting point with families, looking for their strengths and building from there.